Hello, everyone. Welcome to OBS Talk Show Presents. I'm Keith Williams, your host. And in this podcast, we typically we have guests that come on to share their expertise and knowledge on issues and topics that are relevant in the news. So these are issues and topics that are in the news is what we cover here. So today we have Erin Scott with us as our guest. And just like me, she is a podcaster. We will be talking about that later. Her podcast is called Here and Now.
No,
Um,
it's traveling down the Delta Blues Highway, actually.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's what it says on
Yeah.
your profile. But
Ah,
she
no,
used to work.
yeah, no, I did a very old piece
Mm.
about the show uh ew, what was it? The uh something about the biscuit. Yeah. So yeah, it was very old at this point because the
Okay.
host has left
You can
even.
keep us
Yes.
up to date on.
Okay. Yeah, it's old. It's old. But yeah, it went national, so it was good.
And I understand that you used to work for NPR as well.
I did. Actually, it's different. I did work for NPR West. I worked really from American Public Media and the show Marketplace. So yes. So
So
that's
the
how I have some background in, yes, money and business.
um I want to welcome you to the show officially.
Okay, thank you. My
Okay, and
pleasure.
let everyone know who is Erin Scott.
Erin Scott is somewhat of a vagabond. My history was in theater, which to me makes sense. Technical theater is actually downtrodden or not thought of as a thing that is of interest or something that can be used. But technical theater actually, you are learning, well, I learned sound, which took me into radio and National Public Radio and commercial radio. But also with technical theater, I've learned carpentry, um, let me think, welding, event management, and lighting and electricity and other things. So it's better than, let's say, English literature. This is a degree that people can not, in my opinion, write off on. So if you want to, or your child wants to study theater tech, it is something that you should not just say, why is my kid wanting to do that? There are different skills that all my friends from technical theater are doing now and using their degree that parlay into their job and make sense into their job.
So the main thing that we discuss here was is inflation. Understand that
Mhm.
you worked at NPR, and this is one of the things that uh, you've been dealing with here, and obviously inflation is like one of the top um, news stories in the last couple of months. So what have you so what are some of the things that you have covered in relationship to inflation?
I want to push it back to you for a minute. What do you think, or what would you describe inflation as?
What do I think inflation is?
Yeah.
Uh well, if I had to, I'll give you two answers to
Okay.
that. The first answer I'm going to give you is the textbook definition of inflation.
Hmm.
So the textbook explanation of inflation is the rise of cost of a product or service or something based on the rising demand of costs of other things, such as raw materials, that we know right now, for example, a lot of utility companies, they're rising their rates because of fuel, costs. So there is a cause and effect supposedly that comes with, inflation. And then if I
As
want to give a grassroots definition of that, in America, I don't think that we really dealing with inflation. I think we're dealing with is price gouge.
That's interesting. The Oxford English Dictionary with inflation economics, because there are different types of inflation. They say it is the increase of prices and the fall of purchasing value of money, which is interesting. We will talk about money in a little bit longer. Their sentence was policy aimed and controlling inflation, which I found quite interesting as a sentence as well. They were using, yes, policies.
Right.
According to the FEE Foundation for Economic Education, if you ever find yourself on a section of CNN's website, which I went to, they said there was a fear, and you gotta go far up and it's tiny to find it. There is a click through, it's a small ticker called Fear and Greed Index. And you're right about that. That it's that fear. Look at how we had that toilet paper shortage. You had all that and even other things, but
We have the toilet paper
everybody was running
shortage,
for that toilet paper
and
for
then we
good reason.
and then we had the baby formula shortage.
That was different because you had also a government and things not looking forward with a plan. So again, we're looking at policies and other things that were going in on that. Toilet paper was a different thing though. Think about that. That was the fear, just like, George Orwell, having that radio story come out and everyone freaking out about that.
So
So I
is
would
that
say,
what
yeah.
happened with COVID? Like there was a lot of there was a lot of fear that was associated with that. And so people decided they wanted to they said, well, I gotta stock up on toilet paper, I gotta stock up on water,
Hmm.
um, I gotta stock up on PPE, personal
Hmm.
protective equipment,
Hmm. Just like a
all
hurricane. Hmm.
right. But also too, I think it was either 2019 or 2020, we saw a dramatic decrease in oil prices.
Hmm.
Uh, that suggests that at that time, a barrel of oil was negative $36 a gallon,
Hmm.
at that time. And that really shot down gas prices to the
Hmm.
point that uh, I think at that time gas prices was equivalent to that of the mid 80s, mid late 80s. It was like under $2 a gallon. And
Hmm.
now we're seeing increased sharp in gas prices to what I think that national average is close to $5 a gallon. Now in certain places, it has gone under $4 a gallon. Um, I know here in Alabama, we are actually below the national average.
That's right. Uh, the biggest deal is though, according to Forbes, is one article they wrote was Biden, it was the first day or second day, he killed by national, or excuse me, executive order, the killing of the Keystone pipeline. And they say it was an energy security blunder. And they said the moving of crude by truck or rail is far more polluting and hazardous than moving it by brand. And I'm quoting this. Okay, let me back. Moving crude by truck or rail is far more polluting and hazardous than moving it by brand new environmentally sensitive pipeline, which the Keystone system, if completed, would be, and thus was not consistent with the environmental objectives of the Obama Biden administration. Heavy crude was needed because most refineries along the Gulf Coast are set up to process the grade of crude. We've been told by the media that we don't have any system that processes crude oil. So I'm curious what kind of narrative or what's going on, because we've heard, or I've heard, that a lot of the offline refineries are what's going down. I did not know that we could process crude oil. So I'm curious about that. I haven't done the research on that, but something is going on where we were somewhat able to be and keep our prices where they needed to be, and now it's changed.
That's a
And
good
yes,
question.
so
So how do we end up? So how do we end up under $2 a gallon to over $4 a gallon in about 2 to 3 years?
you got to look at your state first. You got to look at your state taxes.
Well, see, I know what happened. See, in
Mhm,
Alabama, Governor Kay Ivey,
mhm.
uh, she pushed a 10-cent gas tax increase that was passed by the state legislature. That's part of our problem.
Mhm,
So it started out 2 cents, then it goes to 5 cents, then it goes to 10 cents. It was a terrible bill from the start. And the way
mhm,
that it went about it was an absolute con scam. And so
mhm.
what happened was she said, okay, this was back in 2018. And she was like, okay, if you consider pushing the gas tax, we'll talk about having a lottery.
Right. And
And
that's the
so
deal
the
too, is
legislative,
like, okay, most lotteries, they say they're going to education, where it really is. And I feel like, and I've felt this since I've voted forever. Why, like with Freakonomics, they call that the pyramid thing. We need to be, as voters are questioning, and even now, especially with the stimulus package and saying, hey, where'd that bucket money go and stuff. I really wish we as voters, or say whomever, we need to audit, or we need to say, hey guys, why are you flying jets? Why, what, you know, even with my council member, did this money go where you said it was going to go, or where it should have gone? So I think there's a real question of, yes. The other thing is, even statewide or national, you're putting things into a bill that you don't even know about. So you need to have, and I wish libertarian, left, right, whomever, I would hope, and I don't, it probably won't ever get passed because politics. Could we please just have a bill that says one thing only? We see it, we know it. A bill's not 400 pages. It says, this is what it is. We want it or we don't.
because I think it's designed that way when a bill is actually put together. 9 times out of 10, these bills are not even written by the legislators
Mhm.
themselves. It's some corporate interest, it's some special interest that is actually writing these bills. And then they go to these state houses on Capitol Hill and say, hey, you know, some are my actual lobbyists, some are lobbyist wannabes, and they say, okay, this is what we want, you know, go do your thing. And so that's how a lot of bills, get passed. It's very rare that you will have an actual legislator member who actually write bills. Like for example, in
Write the
Alabama,
bill or read it.
read it. Like in
Yes.
Alabama, when I go to Montgomery, used to go like 2 or 3 times a year during the legislative session. And we discovered that me and my colleagues in Montgomery, we discovered that a lot of these legislative members, number one, they don't write the bills themselves. And number two, they don't read these bills. And then number three, they are very ignorant when it comes to the issues in these bills. And the fourth thing that I want to bring up is that the language that they put in these bills, they do
Mhm.
it by design so that so it'll be difficult for the average citizen to to understand. So in other words, we really don't know what's in these bills. You, we could have a bill that says, okay, your electric bill is going to go up 1,000%, but they put it in such a way that you're not going to get the underlying, picture of what's going on. And so in our topic of inflation, we're seeing that, companies, they are, they're producing product, but there's also something that called shrinknation, where, they'll make the product, but they'll shrink like go to your grocery store, go to your local grocery store. Like all of
Yes.
your canned goods are smaller than what they used to be. The packaging is
Mhm.
smaller what they used to be. Either it's the same price or the price, goes up. And they say, okay, well, it's, fuel costs, the trucks that come in to, to bring us the food, they are experiencing a rise in cost of fuel in order to get the groceries, the product, to the stores. And so what these
There
stores
is.
do is that they will mark up the price to make up for the loss. So in other words, you and I as consumers, we're paying the price for something that's
Even on the grocery shelf, you're seeing how they are filling the shelves because they're not getting the supply that you had in the past. The
right.
other, um, a friend of mine in Mississippi, single mother, which this will tell you really easy numbers. She said even spaghetti went from $1 to $1.48. So there's a real easy number to give you on that. As of June of this year, the consumer price index said cereal is up 3.8% right away. So I don't know, even smaller, cereal's up. So you go to buy any box, even if it has smaller less, you're paying 3.8 more. Meat, they've chunked up meats, poultry, fish, and eggs together. So there you go, 13.5%. Now, you could at least get your eggs from different places, I think, because everyone has chicken coops now, or you could go to your farmer's market. So I like that idea on that one.
Right. You
Fruits
can
and
really have-
vegetables, I found interesting if you're going to the local grocery store, up 8%. Today, you heard that maybe a thunderstorm did not go to our farmers market, but they said at your grocery store, vegetables and fruits are up 8%. And again, that's because of that. And then, like you said, with gas, even in Alabama, gas is up 50%, but that's an average. And, we don't know because I've driven from Georgia to Texas and then traveled by airplane from Georgia to Chicago to Milwaukee, and even crossing the border from Illinois to Wisconsin. You see a total difference in the price of gas just because of taxes and whatnot.
right,
So
right.
yeah, you're seeing a lot of things happening on that kind of
So
thing.
here's the thing though. In the last couple of years, we seen a oil companies, for example, they're making tens of billions of dollars in profit. So I mean, should we have a conversation
You're
about
digging into the National Reserve though. And where we were before was we were completely independent. And all of a sudden, once we quit and under presidential or whatever executive order, we were not all of a sudden and mostly independent, and things went up. So there was not what we call an SOP. There was not a standard operations procedure to move on. So there is a problem with why we are where we are. That is why. There is no other reason why. You've got even on they're saying, okay, we can drill oil on national land. Well, the leases aren't given out yet, even though they've said, hey, we're going to move forward. They're not letting them move forward. So there is a saying, but things aren't happening. So there's a problem with that. You've also got within legislation and buying and things like that, people don't know that there are basically 3 hedge fund companies that are basically running our country versus us as a voting entity running our country or having a say in our country. Have you ever heard of Larry Fink?
That name sounds familiar.
Yes. He's a hedge fund of, I think it's Blackmark. Have you heard of that? BlackRock, excuse me.
No, I haven't heard.
Yes, yes. He has a big say into how things are run, and what you're saying is all of that. So whatever with the hedge funds are doing, he will basically say this is how things should be run, instead of basically because of capitalism and what you're talking about with oil and everything else that's going on, be it cereal, be it all this, what's on your shelf, all of that. So like you said, with percentage of eggs, all this and this, you need to bring competition to the table. And this is the problem as well with us being locked down and our mask mandate and not being told where we can go out. Everyone was buying online. That's the biggest problem. And this was a problem before pre-COVID. And I would always hashtag buy local, because your local store would give to the community, be it the football game or whatever.
Right.
Now, I would see people hold in their hand a product, be it a book, be it, I don't know, a toy, whatever. And they would say, oh, I can buy this, for less and get it shipped in 2 days on Amazon. Amazon isn't going to give back to the community. And you know what? Possibly in a year or two, you've killed that store, because that local store cannot survive. Also, you're going to have an empty building. And even because I'm mostly in Savannah, but basically in the suburbs of Chicago, I'm seeing all these strip malls just dead. And currently they're being torn down. But everyone, franchise-wise and everything, blew up too much and it's gone. Look at Toys R Us. Do you know what's happening there?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Toys R Us. Do you know what's happening there? Do you remember what happened to Toys R Us?
Not really.
Yeah, Toys R Us shut down completely. We lost them, I think, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had these big, and they even, I think, downsized. But you have all these somewhat warehouse stores. What's your memory of Toys R Us? Do you have any memories of Toys R Us?
The commercials.
Just the commercials. Okay.
Yeah.
Mom says when I went as a kid, she thought it'd be, my brother and I were 2 years apart, would be so happy. And we were just like, whatever. But, kids loved, and a lot of people have, because a lot of my thing is, do you have a food memory? But a lot of people have that memory of walking into Toys R Us and seeing games, seeing all this stuff. Well, it's gone. It's gone because of Amazon. Amazon has taken up and closed down too much. Well, Toys R Us is now going into Macy's. Macy's was going under, just like JCPenney. And you've seen all these malls, and these malls changing, or you don't have those anchor stores anymore. Now, hopefully Macy's will survive a little bit, or the department store has changed, because Toys R Us is coming on in before Christmas. You've seen Starbucks evolve, because you can go in, the mom, with their baby, you can get a Starbucks, get a coffee, and go all over Target and shop. and even Target kind of closed down Macy's because they took the same idea of a department store like Macy's used to be and take it and chunk, where everything is. Oh, all this brand is here. Ooh, I'll go here. And ooh, I'll take this. And oh, this clothing line is only here for a limited amount of time. Then there's your supply and demand right there.
So all,
So
all-
there's your capitalism and there's your supply and demand or your want.
so all
But
of all of
mhm.
the news that we hear about inflation in the media, how did we get to this point? How do we got there?
We're making monopoly money. You can't do any more. Let's see, where do I have some money things on this? Somebody quoted against, I think it was Scripps, that this budget is slowly increasing as the president's budget for no, that wasn't that. The Federal Reserve Bank, this was somebody else, can and does regulate the supply of money by printing more or less of it. And this is the factor that causes inflation, deflation, or stability in prices. And we have seen the Federal Reserve already do some of this. It's been this way for a long time. We don't even know, or I don't even know where the gold is. And we haven't had gold backing our money for a long time. But we can't print more. We can't give out more. The more we say we're going to give or make or do whatever, that's going to be more inflation. We've got to say, yes, let's go out, get you out. And like I said, I feel like support local in a lot of ways will help inflation a lot. And part of that is, yes, getting people to work. And part of the problem with getting people to work, like you said, and you're wanting me to say, is we've got to get travel, transportation, or gas down. I've been offered jobs because of interest, and the wage doesn't really factor into my mileage. So I could be really excited about a job, but it takes an hour out of the first hour of my wage to drive there. So I'm losing 2 hours worth of money to get there. The saying that, yay, we got the minimum wage hike, it didn't do anything. We don't really have a minimum wage that's higher when you've got inflation and your groceries and everything costs more. So you may be making less than before the minimum wage was risen. You
Right.
got to think about this with inflation. So yes, there are some things that need to be dealt with.
So
The problem
having
is that, yes, you can't ask the government to do more. You can't ask or cry for more policy. Let's see. You got to bring competition to the table. And like I said, part of that is don't buy online. Part of that is be a part of your community. Part of that is, get off your couch. You're seeing a lot of this if you're on Facebook. Have a budget, but also see, where you can cut the costs and get out there more. Even though I have a budget, my parents are supporting me because I'm on disability right now. I have to go out to be social. I've seen the profit margin go up, yet the socialization is good, but people are also not having manners and aren't treating the wait staff like they should, even though everything is short staffed. In California, I don't know, his personal narrative was that he went in for a job interview and they said, well, we're really not looking because we're getting government money. So there may be a problem with that state-wise. In Mississippi, in Northeast Mississippi, a gas owner, a station owner that I talked to probably about 10 years ago that I keep talking with, he started out with, first he had the grocery up front and the cafe in back, and on the side he had his fish and hunting type stuff on the side. When I talked to him a few years later, he saw he had to change, and when he changed, he moved the fishing and hunting stuff, and the cafe still stayed where it was, and the grocery had moved, so he had swapped that. And he also, to keep his staff going, he rotated his cooks so that they could be happy. So they had, this is my dish, we're going to put this out today. So that's how he kept his staff going. The biggest deal was with his profit margin. And so he wanted to keep his price the same. So he cut, as you'll see a lot of times, the portion smaller. The problem was with that, all his customers were workers or craftsmen, or however you want to say it. And they came up to him and they said, you can't do this. We're starving by the end of the day, or we can't going. We need that sustainability, or however you want to go with that. So he had to raise his prices and keep the portion the same. That was the first time I learned about or thinking about the commodity of meat or beef or whatever, because he talked about the commodity of ham, one Thanksgiving to another. Nowadays, the last time I talked to him, right before I talked to you about the podcast, was that I asked him about the commodity of beef. He says the beef will rise, partly because we are looking at fertilizer so much coming from Russia. Why are we doing this? And again, we're looking at talking about environmentalism. Ireland uses what they call slurry, which is using basically cow manure as fertilizer. Now you run across it and running all over, it smells, but there is something to that, just like methane gas as something as a way to use as a product of energy. So no one's talking about that. The media isn't asking these questions, but that is one way to deal with what we're going to have to deal with. So yes, there are ways to answer our questions of short term or even long term. How do we get through this? The other deal is just beef in general, or anything in general, what's going down. I've been in Arkansas with my aunt and other family members, and you've got Tyson running the show. So again, how do we keep, and you'll see that in the media, and I'll agree with the media on that one. There are we've got too many large groups of owning a certain amount of food. So how do we break this down? And again, going to your local market, do they have somewhere that processes or have a local butcher? So we need to change our thought process. Even though you may be paying a little bit more right now, you're breaking down what is, and somewhat kind of changing your capitalist thoughts and changing the economics and breaking down inflation, so we don't have this anymore or ever again.
So let me get this straight. You're saying that we can cut down inflation by shopping local.
Well, you're not driving. How do you feel about that? You're supporting local. You're supporting local. You're joining a co-op, which may be even a city. You may have a urban, growing your own food.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Anything like that? you know, why are we getting avocados from Mexico? And the price goes up. Know where your food's coming from. Yeah, we like our cherry. What is in season too? Ask those questions. Yes, we like our food. Where are they coming from? What is happening?
So what are your thoughts on, we're in America's dealing with an inflation, understand it, but what do you think about, companies that are taking advantage of that in order to increase their profits?
Backtracking to it, what do you think Amazon is? Define Amazon for me.
Amazon is a monopoly to me.
Mm-hmm. And what all do they have right now?
Well, let's see. Yeah, I
I would.
remember that. I remember that they I remember that they bought the Washington Post. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. So
Now they
that's
talking about
media. So they're manipulating us on that.
now they're talking about privatizing healthcare, particularly Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
And saw that, on the news. What else? They purchased several other businesses as well. I can't think of on the top of my
Mm-hmm.
head. So
Yeah.
they're definitely a
They start
monopoly.
out in books.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. So you don't even have a competition. Even Barnes and Noble is heading by a thread. You do have an uptick, in local bookstores, thank goodness. Shopping online, you can do anything. Yes, in rural America and other things, that's great. I agree with that. But yeah, what if somebody wants to have a local store? They're competing with the giant. It's a Goliath. So yes, you got to look at, yes, you're dealing with something that isn't, yes, going to happen. And again, like I said, we can't print more money. And the deal is, what is happening with this money? Again, when I worked the 20, well, it's what they say, 2007 to 2009, great inflation or whatnot, great recession is what they call it. There was a housing bubble. They gave loans to people that should have never gotten a loan. People didn't pay on their mortgage. They were buying houses, making houses. So you had empty, half-built houses in suburbs. Again, you probably had the I'm guessing, you can't, say Erin's the expert on that. I'm guessing like now, because we were in this with COVID and everyone want to refurbish the house, the commodity of lumber and whatnot went up. I'm sure during the Great Recession and the housing bubble, you had the commodity of all those supplies go up. It wasn't what it should be. I worked, like I said, 2007 when the markets crashed. I worked that night. I had a guy at a bar say he was a conspiracist, and I was like, I hadn't thought about that. But we have, if you look at the Guardian, at a business article, it was, and I agree with it. It was one man. It was a 31-year-old man, French rogue trader, and he figured out wanted to help the second largest bank in France make money. But he crashed both the French CAC, Germany's DAX, and the Euro stocks. And we were working in Los Angeles in the middle of the night trying to report on something before the markets opened in America. And we're like, what is going down? Everything was just on a down slope. I reached out to two of my friends that I used to work with at Marketplace. And I wondered if, even if America, we had seen it coming, and because I don't know who could do it, but someone in our government could do it. If we could have shut down our market, would things have been different that day? We have federal holidays where stock market's closed. It's an interesting hypothesis. You'd have to talk to a true economist to see if what they think on that. But yeah, it was an interesting time. And again, you have all these guys doing, playing with the numbers and playing with stocks and playing with what we call candle trading, or like now it's basically Bitcoin and, or cyber currency or whatnot. But yeah, they're still playing the numbers and playing up and down and things like that. So yeah. But again, what is currency is the biggest question now. What backs it? And if we keep making more money,
That has
your
not
money
been.
has less. And look at how now all of a sudden our dollar equals the euro, and that hadn't happened hardly in what, 20 years? So that's inflation on a lot of sides, in a lot of ways, and a lot of ways to think about it.
That question has not been answered in over 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What is our money is backed on. And
Mm-hmm.
also, we want to point out too that, like, you mentioned something about the Great Depression. That we know.
Recession.
Now we also know that during that time, during the 30s and 40s,
Well, yeah, we'll go if you want to go back there, but yeah.
Yeah, you
I didn't
you
live
wrote-
that one. Shut up.
well, I did learning in economics. I had to butcher down my throat during economics class.
Okay, yeah.
About the federal
What about
government
this? Yeah.
down on all these monopolies. Particularly back then, you had one particular oil company. It's like really one oil company, that monopolized the whole market. I think it's called Standard, and due
There
to
was a Standard Oil Company, yes.
right, and that was the Rockefellers had something to do with that. Pretty much
Mhm.
the whole family, and they said that they have violated the Sherman Antitrust Act, which I don't know if it's in existence anymore. And
Mhm.
they were forced to break up into smaller companies. They was forced to break up that monopoly. Now, right now, we really don't, see a lot of that because, every time you turn on the news, you got 2 or 3 companies there, are merging together. And they say, well, this is the second largest whatever company,
Well, that's where
in the
you have
world.
Larry Fink and BlackRock. And basically, we don't own BlackRock. BlackRock is the East India Company of our times. And America never wanted anything to do with East India Company and what they were doing. So we're going back to that.
So
And yeah.
we literally have gone back to, as far as corporations is concerned, we literally have gone back to the 1930s.
I would say no. We've learned lessons. And
Um,
the biggest deal is people need to learn about the hedge funds
mhm.
and learn about especially BlackRock and Larry Fink. His name doesn't come out enough. And what the hedge funds are doing, because in many ways they're running our country as much as whom you're voting for within our government, because they're saying this needs to be influencing you and you and you and you. So your vote doesn't count as much as what you're buying into as a hedge fund.
Why is this not getting a lot of attention? And don't
Like you
get me wrong.
said, it might be Amazon, Washington Post. It may be other parts of the media that choose not to do that. So I do not know.
But I mean, I do know politically that
Oh,
people,
and Vanguard, I can't remember the other one. There are three that are triple
so
triptych.
people are just like fed up politically. They're saying that, I don't want to participate in politics anymore because I think a lot of people are, they're saying that, my vote really doesn't count.
You should vote still. No, don't get me wrong. I think though, we're being pushed a lot by the media in other ways, possibly toward a one-party system. I think we should be a three-party system. Libertarian needs to be pushed more. I think more of us feel that way, that we need less government and we should move in a certain way and have our say that way. But it's going to take a long time, and go for it.
I definitely agree with that. I think with this, with the two major parties that we're dealing with is, um, and this is just my opinion. I think that both parties are cut from the same mold. They just have a different path, of achieving the same thing, and that there's and people think that there is no other, option because, again,
Correct.
this is my opinion, that this is the narrative that the media is pushing.
The other deal is because, libertarian or an independent may not get enough votes. So you have to choose.
Right.
I
I
don't want
get
to get baited into something else, so I won't say it. There was, no, I won't do it. No. Just, yes, you should look at policy versus personality and vote in that way and hope that they stick with that policy when they go in, and be very hopeful in the policies that they promise.
um in your opinion, 'cause, I hear this on social media all the time that,
Well, get off social media, it's cancer.
yeah,
But you're a podcaster, so.
when it comes to inflation,
It makes you angry, don't do that.
why do you think people are blaming one person for all that's been happening in the last, what, 4 or 5 or maybe 10 years? Why are they blaming one, person? Like, for example, people are blaming the president because of the rising, gas prices.
Hmm, it's an interesting question.
Um, I think
Well, again, I think it's people voted personality possibly because of COVID. Also, social media helped in a lot of ways. I saw a lot of people scared and putting out anger. So you've got a lot of that going on. You've also got someone who you want or look at as your leader. And so you look at your leader first. And that is why blame comes. You're wanting a leader to lead your country. And it's hard when you have someone who has not taken a press conference, I don't think, or his press conference has been pre-chosen of who he's going to talk to and what questions are going to be asked. That never happened under, I don't think, any other administration, at least in my time, or under the Carter administration. So there's a problem with that you don't have the answers, and your press secretary is going to go round and round like a dog chasing its tail, and we're not getting answers that we need. You've also got the media not looking at or asking the questions that we need from Congress and Senate, or however you put it. It's a three-party system. We no longer really know our civics and know how we have a three part, three pieces of the system. And that's why we have that balance. And go back to YouTube. And I always think conjunction, junction, what's your function? But yes, there are different things from, what was it, electric company, to tell you, yes, we have a well-written document and well-written system and ideas that came through. And this is why America is what it is. And we have to work at being America. And yes,
I guess
if we all come in together, and like I said, social media has brought too much anger in so many ways, and people need to follow their heart. Facebook, I don't want to say that. Social media in general has created groups, and people have less, gone to church and been face to face. People will say things they would never say to a person face to face. They feel empowered by social media at times. And so this is where we're at. And you don't need an algorithm. You need to be out walking, and you need to meet people face to face. Currently, I'm in Savannah. I'm downtown. It's like Europe. I'm in a walking culture. I'm able to greet people, meet people, and smile and be face to face. And also, I haven't been lately, but it's a pub culture as well, or go to a cafe every day. And the suburbs also, Eisenhower did it for a reason, because we were worried about, communism and whatnot. And so I understand it, but the interstate also hurt our small town. We got to rethink some things, and hopefully things will change. But social media, you got to give yourself a timeout. There is something on your computer or a phone or whatever you're on that, can give you a timeout as well. Give yourself that timeout and call your friend. It's called I'll say iPhone. I'll give them a brand name. It's called a phone for a reason. Everyone's texting. Our grammar and everything else is gone. Don't do it. Call them. Write a letter. I've been writing letters, and people love getting that letter. Have you thought about that?
I can't remember the last time I wrote a letter.
And people don't even know my cursive. Well, people say my cursive is good, but the kiddos that I write to, they're like, some of them know and some of them don't. So their parents have to tell them what I wrote. So there you have it.
Yeah, I know. I'm there too. So what was it like working for National Public Radio?
It's like any school or clique. You got your, recess. You got, I don't know. It's the times have changed like anything else. It evolves. So what you're reading now, excuse me, what you're reading now in the media is probably what is going on. They've had problems, things like that. The time I was there, it was a happy time. Any type newsroom. I used to follow this feed that was heard in the newsroom, which were fun little quotes and things that, I was like, I can see. I don't know. It's a changing time. I think it would be hard to get into and go back to. And I don't know if it's a thing that I would. My first job, I'm here. I won't say kind of where I am. And even other places that I've talked to, I've been told, I was a college professor for a while. I've been told, don't go back. It's been too much of a changing time, that things aren't what they are. So, and it's just like, radio has evolved into podcasting. The problem with podcasting is no one's on the road commuting to work. Everyone's working from home. And that's the other deal. We didn't talk about that yet. That people aren't socializing enough because they're working from home. So there you have it too. is
Well,
that yes, the
the good
social media and anger and things like that, and
what
people
about
being ooh,
having
ooh, ooh, you know.
what what about having a family reunion on Zoom?
It would be nice to see people that are all over America at times. I think some of your family would have trouble with the technology. We've had some family gatherings. It means more. My mother is a family from 8. All her siblings are still alive. And we've made well, I'm kind of the middle of the, spoke there. Made an effort to see everyone. The last or second to last time I was there, I actually met my 4th cousin, who's a baby though, in Texas. So I think there is something to that social. We are humans that need that social interaction. So yes, it is good to hear a voice and see that person. My doctor, he said post COVID, we all need touch, but we need to be careful because I've had some interactions that have not been good lately in meeting new people. But we all need touch and we all need that feel. And so there is something to that. So yes, psychologically, we need to get out still. But yes, Zoom is a good way to go. You still need to get out.
Do you think that the recent political unrest and economic uncertainty um, have drive people to where they are today, like angry, sad, mixed emotions, dealing with a lot of psychological trauma?
Let's see. Well, when you first brought that up, I thought about last summer and the summer of riots more. They call it peaceful protest. I drove through Kenosha and it looked like Beirut of my times. It looked like a war zone. And it's sadly in a town that was, or a neighborhood that was coming back. It was just coming back from being somewhat desolate anyway. So they have to regroup. I was back in, now what are we gonna say? I graduated in 93, so what, 92-ish when the Rodney King riots happened. I was in, so that happened, and then I moved to LA in 99. Los Angeles still looked pretty bad. When I graduated in 2000, I came back in 2004 and it had totally changed and was amazing. So it takes time. It takes about 10 years for things to come back pretty much, I think. And so you're going to have, and especially because some of these people are still pushing and things like that, you're going to have a large and hard time economically having people want to come back. So I thought it was interesting since Detroit is already having a hard time economically that the police officer chief said, don't do it, don't come here. And so whatever growth they're on or path they're on will still stay on that path. They're not taking a step forward because there were no riots. Um, Let me see, where am I going with this? I think that, yeah, for me, it was sad with Kenosha. You're gonna have to ask that question again. Sorry.
The question was with the recent political unrest and economic stability.
Okay.
Does that have and does that have what type of effect you believe that's have on, let's say, individual or maybe a family
I don't think it did. What were you doing July 4th?
at home?
You were at home. Okay. So I think a lot of families didn't matter. They, with the mask mandates and everything that had been and being isolated so long, they did not want to do a Zoom call. They wanted to be with family or neighbors or someone else. They didn't care how much a hot dog cost. They were careful. They didn't have excess of food, but they were out. They may have crossed lines to even buy a firecracker. I don't know. But I think, yes, things were happening. And yes, I was hoping, and unfortunately it hasn't happened yet. And I think where I am, people are out, hospitality is out. I don't know how much they're tipping or what is being spent, but overall, people are flying into my town. People are doing definitely tourism things that my sister-in-law had said possibly after COVID or maybe masks, that we would be kind of like prohibition and we'd be back into the roaring 20s. And that had totally been my hope. It hasn't been my hope yet. And I think it's partially because of social media and media in general. And I think hopefully, depending on your listeners and everything else, rethink that, get out, just don't go, hey, but you see that a lot, roaring 20s. You see that a lot with, festivals and other things. You see festivals and things on social media. You see people out at concerts. So, I mean, you're saying and trying to pull me in to say something about recession. People are making or having a budget or doing something and saying, no, this has gone on too long. I want my life back. So I don't know if they're going into debt, they're budgeting, or they're just saying, I got to do something. I've been on lockdown too long and I'm moving forward. A lot of them have probably lost family or friends or somebody else, and they can't do it anymore. They've got to find where their path takes them at this point.
So despite the high prices, of everything, you mean that people are willing to, go out to a concert or go out to, or go on vacation. So knowing that we're dealing with got high gas prices, high food prices, and high utility prices, you mean people are still willing to spend money despite that?
In my town, I've seen, yeah, and Southwest moved into my town a year and a half ago. It's raised and changed everything. You used to have to go to another town, um, 2 towns to fly into. You had to fly 2.5 or an hour and a half. And so we were kind of the bastard child of hospitality because they take a day trip to see our town. And now we're getting more, I call them hen parties, but they're bachelorette parties and things coming into town, staying at Airbnbs, staying at hotels, doing everything. The Airbnb is changing hospitality though, because, which I don't understand why, if you're in a town, you should want the experience of the town. They're buying food and staying in the Airbnb. So it's like, what? You could do that? I mean, I had a friend way back that his buddy was like, well, I'm having a boys thing, come to Ibiza. And you had to fly and it was hard to drive to Ibiza. And Nate was like, we could do this in, West Palm Beach or whatever. So, I mean, there are ideas for changing up things, but people are still taking vacations and doing things. There
Uh,
may be different ways to regroup and do things. So
we gotta
yes,
wrap
there
up
are
here.
ways. Yeah.
So I just have two more questions. What
Mhm.
advice do you give to someone who is like overwhelmed with this inflation thing? What advice would you give to people who
Early
feel
on, uh, which I kind of did, but I have a very small pantry. Early on, a woman who used to be on Tank, who the blonde woman, I don't know her name, she said with your stimulus check, because she kind of saw the, excuse me, the recession or inflation, excuse me, coming, buy as much canned goods as you can. Definitely buy general products instead of your, you know, regular products, name products if you can, if you like them, definitely, which I do. I've found some that I really like. Use your coupons for sure. Do your research, things of that nature. Even going out, but still, please tip your wait staff because they need it. Do the math and do that. Um, I would say too, I've talked to a number of wait staff. Don't snap at them or be mean. Please don't do that. I have too many friends in the industry. Also, in my opinion, you can't do it with mileage and stuff, but yeah, you keep pushing gas. I think we're just gonna have to wait to November to see what's gonna happen and see how there's so many things that have happened with executive orders. We're gonna have to see with the other branch of government what can happen and what will be pushed back birth with another branch of uh excuse me, of government. So it should be an interesting ride in the next 2.5 years.
Okay. How well how can someone reach you? I know you have a podcast and everything.
Yeah. Mhm. Right now, well, my website is audiochick without the K.net. And then you can click through to a couple links. My podcast is Traveling Down the Delta Blues Highway, and it's on Apple and Spotify and some other places. You can find me on Instagram at the same hashtag, or Audio Chick without the K, and Twitter. There you go. I'm Erin Scott.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You definitely put a spin on this topic,
Mhm.
and that's what we like. We heard the same song and dance about particular topics all the time. But every now and then we get a person that comes on and put a nice personal spin on the topic, something that people are able to relate to, and that's what get people to listen and watch. So really appreciate that, and for you to take the time to come on here and be a guest.
All
Appreciate it.
right.
And we're going to end it here. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got another great broadcast next Saturday at 3:30 Eastern Time, 2:30
Mhm.
Central. So please join in. And as always, we always have a personal spin on a topic that's making news headlines. So we just not only getting what we hear from the media, but we also, our guests, they tend to put their own personal, spin on it so that, whatever is being said about that topic, people will be able to relate to. So you don't get a lot of that in mainstream media. So that's why it's one of the reasons why we're here, because we give people an opportunity to do that. And so that's what this particular podcast is all about. So, Erin, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank
And
you.
all you listeners and viewers out there, thank you for being a part of this presentation. And I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Hope y'all learned something new today. Have a good one.
Mhm.